Hello, this is Lady Mule, and welcome back to Black American Lineage. Thank you for going on this journey through our past and our present, and I thank you for being patient with me while I get this thing together. If there are subjects that you would like for me to do a video on, just leave it in the comment section. I will read it. Today, we're talking about the 40 acres and the mule that we never got. 40 acres and a mule was not a slogan. It was not a myth. It wasn't some cute phrase somebody made up later. It was a real military order issued in 1865 that was supposed to give black families land after slavery, and America took it back. So today we're breaking down the promise, the betrayal, and the generational consequences of the 40 acres and the mule that we never received. William Tecumseh Sherman was a Union general. His march began in Atlanta and he marched all the way to the sea to Savannah, Georgia. And behind his army were tens of thousands of newly freed black people walking, limping, starving, carrying children, but also carrying hope. They weren't waiting for handouts. They were looking for safety, they were looking for land, and they were looking for a chance to live as free people. Sherman realized he had a crisis on his hands, so he did something America rarely does. He asked black people what they needed. He met with 20 black ministers and community leaders in Savannah, Georgia. These were men who had survived slavery, they had survived war, and they still had the clarity to speak for their people. When Sherman asked black folk what they needed to survive, they said it plainly. The best way we can take care of ourselves is to have land. This moment is the foundation of Special Field Order number 15. Now, why? Some people might ask, why did William Sherman, a senior officer in the Union Army, issue that military field order, and what gave him the authority? Well, the Union Army had won the Civil War. That's what gave him the authority. And black people had been an instrumental part of them winning that war, because before the black people got into that war, the North was losing and the South was winning. But after black people got in that war and started fighting, the Union Army beat the South, and they beat them good. Sherman issued Special Field Order number 15 on January 16th, 1865, and it said 400,000 acres of confiscated Confederate land from Charleston to Jacksonville reserved exclusively for black families, divided into 40-acre plots with Army mules available for use. That's 40 acres and a mule. This was not charity. This was reparative justice. It was the government acknowledging that enslaved people needed land to build a life. This was the first and only time the U.S. government formally allocated land specifically for formerly enslaved people. Black families did move onto that land. They built homes, they planted crops, they started schools and churches, and they formed self-governing black communities. For a brief moment, there was a glimpse of what freedom could have looked like. This was real land, real families, and real futures being built. Then Abraham Lincoln was assassinated. His vice president, Andrew Johnson, was a Southern sympathizer, and he became president. He immediately revoked Sherman's order, returned that land to the former Confederates, evicted black families who had already settled, and shut down land distribution. He also undermined the Freedmen's Bureau, which was supposed to help the enslaved people to get on their feet. So you see, we've been swimming against the tide every time. Every time the country tries to do something right, somebody will come right along and undo it. So Andrew Johnson, who became president after Abraham Lincoln was assassinated, took the land from the black people and gave it back to the white people. The very people who had tried to destroy the country, he gave them back their land, took it back from the black people, and told the black people basically, get off the land. And the consequences of that decision still exist today. Black families were forced into sharecropping, and that was after the Compromise of 1877, which we will talk about at another time. But the sharecropping really was Jim Crow, and that was really the second slavery. And the generational wealth that Black Americans should have built after slavery was blocked at the root. White families regained their land and built wealth that still exists to this day. And Black Americans were left with nothing but labor and debt. This is why the phrase 40 acres and a mule still carries weight, because it represents the first broken promise of Reconstruction. People love to say 40 acres and a mule was never real. That's a lie. It was real. It was written, it was enacted, and Black families lived on that land. The only reason it didn't last is because the government chose to reverse it. This wasn't a failure on the part of the Black people, it was sabotage on the part of the government. Surprise, surprise. 40 acres and a mule wasn't just land, it was a foundation, it was stability, it was generational wealth, and it was taken. When people ask why Black America is still fighting for reparations, this is why. Because the first time they promised us justice, they snatched it back. And we have never stopped paying the price. The mouthpieces of America love to quote statistics on us. They love to tell the world how poor we are, how much of us are on welfare, how many of us are receiving SNAP benefits, what the incarceration rate is. Anything negative about Black Americans, they love to tell it, and they will repeat it over and over again after what they have said has been debunked. But they won't tell you about the things that they have done against us, how they snatch things back, how somebody who is well-meaning will put forth something and get it passed for Black people, and then they'll either give it to white people or somebody else, but by any means necessary, they're going to take it away from us. But they won't tell the world about Black Wall Street. They won't tell the world about Oscarville. They won't tell the world about Wilmington, North Carolina, how they sabotaged that particular town that was thriving. They won't tell you about Lake Martin in Alabama. They won't tell about the destruction they have caused in Black America. Oh, but they will tell the world loudly about all of the things about us that are wrong. And that's the hypocrisy of it. And I just want to add this before I close. The Civil War destroyed the South. It was burned down, it was torn down, it was shot up, it was a mess. And the former enslavers, absolutely, and this is what the research says, the former enslavers absolutely could not rebuild the South without Black people. The historical record is clear. The Southern economy collapsed without Black labor, and white Southerners immediately moved to force Black people back into the labor system through laws, violence, and political pressure. So you see, for all this talking about them running around building the South after they tore it up, well, they tore it up. The North tore it up, but the South started the war, and the North finished it and tore up the South. And the white people didn't have any idea how to rebuild the South. And it has never reached the level of wealth that it had during slavery. So for all of the bragging and all of the talking that they do, Black people built this economy, this infrastructure, and everything to do with America. Now, white people were here doing what they do, but Black people did the labor. Okay, y'all, thank you for listening and have a good day.